Morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. It is time to read 2 more chapters of Civil War on Sunday. So, we will read chapters 7 and 8 today. And chapter 7 is called Helping Hands. The firing came to an end. The horses calmed down. The smoky air began to clear. Clara handed Jack and Annie each a canteen. So a canteen is like a water bottle. "Fill these quickly," she said. "We have no time to waste." Jack's legs felt wobbly as he followed Annie to the creek. They filled their canteens, then climbed back into the wagon. "Keep alert," said Clara. "Look for the wounded as they come off the battlefield." She snapped the reins. The horses started off again. As they bumped along, Jack looked ahead for wounded soldiers. "There," said Annie. She pointed to a man limping toward them and waving his arms. The man looked very young, more like a teenage boy. His uniform was torn and bloody. It wasn't a blue uniform, though. It was gray. Clara pulled the horses to a stop. "But he's a Confederate soldier," said Jack. "When someone is hurt, you give them a helping hand no matter who they are," said Clara. Her voice got softer. "I have seen courage and kindness on both sides of this war. Sometimes things are not as simple as they seem." So the man was wearing a gray uniform, not a blue one. So that means that he was from the South and not the North. But Clara is helping both sides, right? Because we're all human and we're all people and we need help if we're hurt. And she's not choosing sides. She's helping everyone who needs help. And that's really brave and very kind. Jack was glad they had stopped to help the soldier. He jumped out of the wagon. "Do you need a helping hand?" he asked the young man. "Thank you," the soldier said softly. Jack helped him into the back of the wagon. The soldier lay down on a pile of blankets and closed his eyes. Jack climbed back onto the seat beside Clara. She snapped the reins and they rode on. They came across more ragged men resting in the shade of an oak tree. These soldiers all wore blue uniforms. Again, Clara stopped the horses. "See if any of those men need a ride to the hospital," she said to Jack and Annie. Jack glanced at the soldiers sleeping in the back of the wagon. "Can a Confederate and a Union soldier be together?" he asked worriedly. Clara nodded. "Sometimes men are simply too sick and too tired to be enemies anymore," she said. "Sometimes they even know each other. Many families and friendships have been torn apart by this war." "Let's go," said Annie, hopping out of the wagon. Jack followed her. They carried their canteens to the men under the oak tree. "Hi," said Annie. "Does anyone need to go to the hospital?" "Only John, our drummer boy," a soldier said. "He's suffering from heat stroke, but we all need some water, miss." Jack saw a young boy lying on the ground. His eyes were closed. "Oh, Jack," whispered Annie. "He looks just like you." The boy did look a lot like Jack, just a few years older. "We better get him to Clara's ambulance right away," said Annie. She handed her canteen to one of the tired soldiers. Another soldier lifted the drummer boy to his feet. The boy opened his eyes and mumbled a few words. He tried to walk, but he swayed as if he were about to faint. "Wait!" Jack grabbed the boy. "We'll give you a helping hand," he said. The drummer boy put his arms around Jack and Annie's shoulder. "Just a little farther, John," Annie said. "You're doing great. Just a little further." The drummer boy moved as if he were walking in his sleep. His head hung down low. His feet shuffled in the dust. "Take good care of him," one of the men called. "We can't do without him." So interesting thing that Clara said was that families and friends were torn apart by this war because we have family living in the north and you have family sometimes living in other states. And so if your state was on the opposite side of the war, a lot of people were fighting against family and friend, and that's really hard and really sad. So that's another thing that was really, really terrible about the Civil War is that people on both sides still knew each other and still were related and still were friendly. So that made it even harder to fight this war. Chapter 8 is called Brothers. Clara Barton had turned the wagon around. She helped Jack and Annie lift the drummer boy into the back. The soldier said he has heat stroke, Annie told Clara. His name is John. The boy lay down next to the sleeping Confederate soldier. He does have heat stroke, Clara said. The other boy also has a high fever. We must get to the hospital at once. Can you two stay in the back of the wagon and do as I tell you? Sure, said Jack and Annie. Clara dampened 2 clean cloths with water from Jack's canteen. Gently press these cloths against their faces to help cool them off, she said. She gave the cloths to Jack and Annie. Then she went to the front of the wagon and climbed in. The wagon started forward. Jack and Annie gently patted the soldiers' faces with the damp cloths. Jack looked at the young men lying side by side. The two seemed far more alike than different. In another time and place, they might have been friends, Jack thought. Finally, the wagon arrived at the field hospital. The Confederate soldier was put on a stretcher and carried to a tent. 2 soldiers wearing bandages put the drummer boy on the stretcher. Could you stay with John a while, Clara Barton asked Jack and Annie. Sure, said Jack. Try to bring down his fever, Clara said. A nurse will give you ice packs to press against his skin. Find me when his fever is lower. The drummer boy was carried into an empty tent. Jack and Annie followed. John was put on a cot. Then a nurse brought some rags and a bucket filled with ice. Jack and Annie were left alone with the boy. Jack wrapped some ice in a rag. He pressed the ice pack against the boy's head and neck and arms. Annie fanned the air to cool John off and keep away the flies. Jack felt so hot. He pressed an ice pack against his own face for a moment. Then he looked up drummer boys in his Civil War book. He read, "The Civil War was the last war to use drummer boys. The drum beat was used to give orders to soldiers. Different beats told them when to eat, how to march, and even how to fight. On smoky battlefields, the boys' drumming helped soldiers find one another and keep together." Wow, said Jack. He closed the book, pulled out his notebook, and wrote, "Drummer boy, really important job." Suddenly, John shouted. Jack looked up from his notebook. The drummer boy was still asleep, but he was waving his arms as if he were having a nightmare. Annie shook the boy's arm. "Wake up, John," she said. "You're okay. Wake up." The drummer boy opened his eyes. "You are having a bad dream," said Annie. "You're safe now. You'll see your family again soon." "No, no," the boy said. He sounded frantic. "I have to go back to the battlefield." "No, you don't have to fight anymore," said Annie. "You can go home and be safe." "No," said the boy. "They need me. They need my drum." He sounded more and more upset. Jack thought about their list. "Put aside your own feelings," he remembered. "Okay, John," said Jack. "You can go back as soon as you feel better." "Jack," said Annie. "He'll get hurt or killed. I'm afraid for him." "Me too," Jack said softly. "But we have to put our own feelings aside. That's one of the things on our list." Annie sighed. "Okay," she said sadly. She looked at John. "If you want to fight again in the Civil War, you can, if that's what you really want." "Thank you," the boy whispered. "You know, you're the bravest kid I've ever met," Jack said. It's amazing how important the drummer boy was. I was kind of curious about why there was a boy with a drum during a war. It's pretty crazy that they're so important. The drummer boy smiled at Jack. "You look just like my little brother," he said hoarsely. "You look just like my big brother," said Jack, "except I don't have a big brother. I don't have any brothers." The 3 of them laughed. The drummer boy's laugh was very soft. The boy laid his head back on his pillow and closed his eyes again. In a moment, he was sleeping peacefully. A smile was on his lips. Annie felt his forehead. "His fever's gone down," she said. "We should go tell Clara." Annie left the tent. Jack got up and slowly followed her. When he reached the entrance of the tent, he turned and looked back. The shadows of twilight fell across the boy's calm, sleeping face. It was strange. Jack hardly knew the drummer boy, but he felt they could be brothers. Listening to the cannon fire in the distance, Jack was afraid for the boy. Will he live to see his family again, Jack wondered. "Good luck, John," Jack said softly. With a heavy heart, Jack stepped out into the warm evening air. All right, well, that was the end of chapter 7 and 8. Tomorrow we will finish this book and read chapters 9 and 10 and find out how this book is going to end. Hopefully Jack and Annie leave and bring that list with them, something to follow, to Morgan. All right, my friends, enjoy your day, and I will see you guys tomorrow to finish Civil War on Sunday. Bye.